So a while ago I made a video talking about the Borderlands 2 Vault Hunters and what became of them after the events of that game. And it didn't occur to me that I could do the same thing but for the pre-sequel Vault Hunters. So here we are. Unlike the other video, this one is going to contain spoilers. I'm not going to go very in-depth with each character's journey as I have separate videos on each of them if you're looking for full context and backstory on each of them. But be aware, the fate of what happened to them is going to be said. So if you're looking for more context, be sure to check out my History of Borderlands videos. If you're here for a more quick synopsis about what happened, then let's continue. For this, we are going to be starting after the events of the Claptastic Voyage DLC, where all of the Vault Hunters decided their paths. Firstly, we may as well begin all of this with Claptrap, as the whole DLC revolved around him and he has probably the most basic path that every player can assume and follow. So at the end of the DLC, Jack decided to completely shut down and eliminate the entire line of Claptrap units just because he could and he found them annoying. He took the honor of shooting the Claptrap he had been working with, which is the same unit that we'd been with since Borderlands 1, and he began dumping their corpses in Windshear Waste. But Claptrap didn't die, and that was thanks to Shadow Trap, the subroutine within Claptrap's system that served as the antagonist throughout the DLC. I'm working under the presumption that you've at the very least played this game and its DLCs, so thus know the characters within it. Either way, at the end, Shadow Trap winds up sacrificing his life to give Claptrap a small charge of life, thus keeping his unit up and running, making him the last Claptrap unit still functional. He is then found by Sir Hammerlock, who nurses him back to working order, something he probably regrets doing. Claptrap would remain at Windshear Waste cleaning up the messes of Jack's victims, until Borderlands 2. And all subsequent entries. Claptrap's story is quite frankly much too long to give a quick recap on because he's a major NPC in pretty much every entry. I guess the important thing to take away from his portion is that after the pre-sequel, he joins the Crimson Raiders with you and becomes a key member of the team that everyone finds annoying. He's kinda just always there and part of the group. Nisha, the Lawbringer. Her story follows through on the progression she was having during the main game with Handsome Jack. If you played as her and listened to her and Jack's dialogue, you would hear the two slowly form an attraction to each other. She often expressed her physical attraction to him, but it was his socio and psychopathic tendencies that really won her heart over. So she and Jack began dating. As such, she assisted him with his rise to power and takeover of Pandora. This included going against the original Vault Hunters who stood in their way, Roland, Lilith, Mordecai, and Brick. She participated in the fall of New Haven and taking down that settlement, and actually took Brick prisoner after killing his dog. Jack then took over a town and gifted it to her for their anniversary. He initially wanted to call it New Haven, but Nisha refused that name and dubbed it Lynchwood, where she would become its sheriff. During Borderlands 2, you do encounter her and kill her during a very non-eventful side mission. This is in part to Borderlands 2 having been made as a game before the pre-sequel, so she was just meant to be some random mini-boss who just so happened to be Jack's girlfriend, who we kill to piss him off. She wasn't much of a character, and then the pre-sequel came out and the writers regretted killing her via this side mission because at that point she could have provided so much more. But unfortunately, she suffered the fate of being killed before she was even a character. Wilhelm. Wilhelm's journey follows much of Nisha's as well. He and her were the only two Vault Hunters who really decided to stick by Jack's side, and so they both helped him. Jack was also his source of robotic upgrades. If you pay attention to Wilhelm's character model as you slowly level his character up, he becomes more and more robotic. He always wanted to be a robot and he'd formed an addiction to upgrading his body, and Jack was the perfect man to just give him stuff. Similarly, he too helped contribute to the fall of New Haven, although unlike Nisha, he was actually the main driving force for its downfall, almost managing to kill the 4 original Vault Hunters. His story doesn't go too much further in its importance, as he would simply serve as Jack's muscle to kill things. During the events of Borderlands 2, he is betrayed by Jack and gets poisoned, weakening him to a state of vulnerability, where the new Vault Hunters kill him and retrieve a shield upgrade that Jack wanted to sneakily get into their possession. Was there a better way? Honestly, probably yeah, without killing your most valuable soldier. But Jack is not all there. Wilhelm may have been a simple man, but he got stabbed in the back by the man feeding his robotic addictions. Aurelio. Aurelio was one of only 2 characters that simply walked away from Jack at the end of the pre-sequel. It seems even she is capable of recognizing someone losing their mind and deciding wanting nothing more to do with them. After this, she seems to have become a wanderer of sorts. I mean, she's still rich and was using all of her assets at her disposal, but still hunting vaults? Lilith wound up putting a hit out on her for assisting Jack during the game and helping him rise to power, but later retracted that for her own reasons. Axton and Gage found her on the planet of Eptal while searching for its vault, where they captured her and brought her to the Crimson Raiders. All of this was heard during the Holodome DLC, which was part of the pre-sequel. It seems that at the time this was meant to imply the fact that we were recruiting her, setting up for an epic war. But then Borderlands 3 happened and had to serve as an in-between entry into the franchise before we could get to the war itself. And so Aurelia got plucked off of the shelf of an ally she was so briefly on and put back on as an antagonist. Axton and Gage collecting her resulted in nothing, and her new motivation seemed to be simply fucking with her brother? Alistair at this point started dating Wainwright Jacobs, heir to the Jacobs Corporation, and so Aurelia decided to buy the company. This was troublesome as Montgomery Jacobs, the CEO at the time, had no desire to part with the family company, and so she enlisted the assistance of Troy and Tyrene Calypso, 2 twins who have since risen to power. And so Aurelia sleeps with Troy, who then kills Montgomery so she could swoop in and forcefully take control of the company. And during Borderlands 3, she does that and not much else. I mean, she makes fun of her brother and tries to kill Wainwright so she can have legal ownership of the company, but there's not much motivation behind her. To be fair, Alistair doesn't want to kill her, but despite that, the new Vault Hunters do, and she is killed during the game. She met a very unfortunate end in a not very good nor eventful plotline. Timothy Lawrence. Timothy found himself in a bit of an unfortunate predicament. After the events of the pre-sequel, he didn't exactly agree with Jack and wanted to be by his side like Nisha and Wilhelm, but he also didn't have the freedom to simply walk away like Aurelia and Athena. Being Jack's body double, he was forced to stick around. At first, things didn't seem all too bad because Jack decided to reward him. He sent Timothy to the Handsome Jackpot, his own personal casino, to live the life of luxury as Jack. In other words, Timothy was sent to the casino as staff. Every other doppelganger Jack made was there as well, as it made for good branding having a bunch of Jacks around. It wasn't ideal, but all things considered, it wasn't terrible. That was until Jack died. After the events of Borderlands 2, the entire casino went into lockdown and chaos erupted. Patrons, workers, doppelgangers, they all turned on each other and it became about survival. Timothy couldn't leave because all of the doppelgangers had a bomb in their face during the initial surgery, and these bombs serve a purpose, and their purpose right now was not being allowed to leave the casino. When Moxie decides to take the casino for herself, cause it was her idea, the new Vault Hunters meet Timothy and help him take down Pretty Boy, someone who's since risen to power over the casino in its ruin. By the end of the DLC, everyone is almost sucked into a black hole but are saved. Timothy does get a little moment with Moxie expressing some romantic interest, but then again, what character doesn't have romantic interest in Moxie? And he runs off in an old-fashioned freeze frame of happiness as he is now free for the first time since becoming a doppelganger. There is a bit of a cliffhanger as during this DLC we learn that he was injected with some of Jack's DNA, so his personality can sometimes slip into Jack's. Whether or not that will inevitably play a factor and Jack gets reborn is unknown, but for now Timothy is free to do as he pleases. Athena. She, like Aurelio, was the only other person to directly walk away from Jack following the events of the game. Fortunately, meeting Jack wasn't all doom and gloom, as during their adventures, she met Janie Springs. By the end of the game, and upon walking away, Athena did hook up with Jamie and the two started dating. They moved to Hollow Point and started their new life together. Unfortunately, it turns out throwing away all the money Jack had given her for the sake of her pride wasn't a very smart financial decision, and so she needed a new job. Problem was, though, Janie wasn't very happy with her bounty hunter-esque skill set as she worried for her safety and asked that she stopped. Athena agreed to this, but lied as she really doesn't know how to do anything else. She takes a job from a man named Felix to protect his two daughters, Fiona and Sasha. And this is where the whole journey through Tales from the Borderlands happens, which is a semi-long one. There's two important plot points to take away, if any. Firstly, she was captured by Lilith under the same order Aurelio was hunted under for assisting Handsome Jack. Brick and Mordecai take her down and drag her to Sanctuary, where fortunately her life was saved by the Watcher. And finally, at the end of Tales from the Borderlands, the players have the option to choose between Vault Hunters they want to help fight the Vault Monster with, and if Athena and Janie are chosen together and you made the correct dialogue choices during the game, at the end of it, the two admit that they are planning to get married. And that's where we left off with Athena, as we've yet to see her, Janie, or mention of them since this announcement. It's been over 8 years since that announcement, so they are probably married. But for now, that's where they've all been. Half of them are dead now, but 3 of them are alive. If you're curious, I did also do a spoiler-free version on the Borderlands 2 characters, as well as I have a bunch of individual videos on each of these characters and pretty much every character from Borderlands if you want to know the history of them. But for now, thank you guys for watching this video, and until next time, I'll see you in the next video.